Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with interesting and inspiring people like our new friend Anna to help our listeners, that's you, find the resources, tools, and support you need to be your best inspired self. How are you today, Anna?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Happy to be here, Jackie. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so blessed and so thankful that you took the time to be here as well. I wonder if you could give the audience an introduction to a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now in the world.
Sure. Well, there's, of course, lots of facets as to who I am. And the first one is that I'm a mother and I have two beautiful children. I have one daughter and one son. And so that's probably the most important thing to me. And secondarily is my career and what I bring to the world, which is all about teaching various kinds of peace education. Most of it has to do with inner peace and finding ways to let go of our sadness and pain and experience joy and purpose instead. So that's been really my story, and I help others now to find those places inside of themselves so that we can awaken and be happy.
That's beautiful. So I've never heard that described that way before, peace education, or could you just tell the users a little, or the listeners a little bit more about what that means to you?
Sure. Well, I have an academic background in peace studies and also in dispute resolution. So I have a master's in dispute resolution, and I've just been thinking about this stuff for a long time, noticing in my own life, in my own family, and in the world how much conflict there actually is, and what am I going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? So that goes on many, many levels. You know, there's the interior thoughts that kind of bug us during the day or really bring us down to some anxiety and depression. And it goes all the way to nations and fighting against each other, or, you know, bigger societal levels. So I studied all that and became more and more interested in finding the practical ways to feel peaceful, because it's possible to really study a lot of academic stuff, but then at the end of the day, how do I feel? How do you feel? You know, and what can we give? Because I really feel like our purpose is to find what is the specific wonderful thing or things that we're here to offer to the world, because that's what's really brings us joy. So a lot of times we get stuck because we're not feeling so good inside. And I certainly had that experience myself, you know, even with the academic training and going all the way through a master's program in it. Did that mean that I was any more together or peaceful inside of my own mind? Not really. So I needed to find other tools and processes. So I'm deep into yoga and meditation. I study a spiritual book called A Course in Miracles, which I have written about, actually. And I have an online course that kind of explains what A Course in Miracles is about, because it's a big, thick book and it's brilliant and it has helped me so much. And yet it also can be kind of off-putting when you start it, because it's really long and the language is a little strange. So anyway, if anyone is curious about A Course in Miracles, I highly, highly recommend it. And it has helped me a lot with my experience of what inner peace really is and how to get to it, how to really feel it inside of me and then share it with others. And so the main thing about the course, which is also shared by a group of people who do radical forgiveness, which I also studied with my mentor, Colin Tipping. And so some of the audience may have heard of Colin Tipping and his work. So I studied with him and I realized that letting go of our suffering and laying down our burdens of pain and past memories and all the stuff that keeps us stuck it can be called a radical form of forgiveness. This is not the traditional model that we learned when we were kids. Like, I realized, okay, probably most of us learned about forgiveness when we were about 4 or 5 years old. And we're out on the playground and we're old enough to be playing with other kids, not parallel play next to other kids, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to that stage where we're playing with kids and, you know, somebody knocks somebody down or takes their lunchbox or whatever. And that's when we first start learning from adults, oh, one kid's supposed to say, I'm sorry. And the other kid is supposed to say, oh, that's
That's okay.
okay. And that's maybe as much as we learned. Now, some people went to church and learned a whole other thing about forgiveness, but not everybody went to that church and not everybody was paying attention. And maybe that church also gave a whole lot of other messages along with it. So I've just been on this journey to find out what is the purest, most helpful message about clearing out the closet, you know, basically inside of our minds, our hearts, and our memories, so that we can be happy and free. And that's my whole life story in a nutshell. Is I'm my own guinea pig. I'm working this stuff every day. I don't claim to be done at all. And I do say, yeah, I'm passionate about it. I'm fascinated by this. Come on along with me so that we can learn about this together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this a while. I've been doing this like 20 years. So I have a lot of experience with counseling, both individuals and couples. And I've done a lot of workshops with groups. And so it just gets deeper and deeper and profound on the levels of where we can not only as human beings heal, but also really tap into our spiritual power. And I say that as somebody who doesn't have a specific religion. So if you have a specific religion, you're totally welcome. If you don't, you're totally welcome. Everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
So this is really about our spirituality that may or may not have a religion attached to it.
Yeah. So they can coexist, or exist separately, right? To have both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was really curious. I had 2 questions that came up for me as you were chatting. My first question is all conflict then bad in terms of your belief system?
No, not at all. And I just in the last few days had a huge um, realization for myself about the juiciness of conflict. You know, I've done years and years of teaching conflict resolution, being a mediator, being a facilitator for groups that are in conflict. I've worked in prisons. I worked with at-risk teens. I've done restorative justice. So I've been in high conflict situations and scenarios. And I always felt like it was a creative space to be if we have enough tools. It's not creative if we just are bashing each other and ourselves over and over and over again. And what I see is once a person, any one of us, gets bashed around enough and bashes others enough, even if it's only in our own thought, we never even say anything, it's still happening in our mind. Once we do that enough, we get to this place where we say, okay, there's got to be something else. I'm tired of all this conflict. It's not that the conflict is evil, it's that we want to have better tools to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many, many tools like communication skills, listening, taking a breath, taking a time out, having I statements, you know, all those communication tools, they're very, very important. But what I found as I was teaching them and sharing them with people, that unless people have inner tools of how to calm down, then all those other ones, they're good, but they just don't hit the spot, you know, because we're still running a lot of anxiety and anger and stuff that probably doesn't even have to do with this moment or even this current conflict. It has to do with just a whole way that we are um, navigating our world and what we think is real. And that's why coming into the inner dimension of, well, being really honest, open, and willing to see, where am I really scared? And where have I really shut down? And it doesn't mean you have to announce that to the whole world, but we better announce it to ourselves, because otherwise we're just going to run the same story over and over again. And probably most people who are listening, once you're beginning adulthood, you start to see the patterns. By the time you're in your 30s, you're like, oh shit, I already did this twice. How come I have a boss that needs to, run my life? Or how come my last 2 relationships ended in exactly the same way? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason, because it's because of how we're thinking about our world and ourselves. The good news is that you don't have to fix anything. None of us have to fix ourselves. And that's a whole rabbit hole we can get down to. Oh, I need this, I need that, I need 1 more of those, I need to do this, and I need to fix myself, I need to fix that other person, I got to fix the world. What I've realized is we don't have to fix, but we do have to let go. We have to release. And that's what the deep forgiveness process is all about. It's not a patching up or a fixing. It's letting go of these extra layers. It's like I sometimes describe it like we have this burlap bag over our heads, and it's filled with stones, and it just feels so damn heavy. And all we need to do is take the bag off the top of your head, let those stones drop to the ground, and you'll be like, oh, I'm cool, I'm good, and I always have been. It's just that extra, which is part of our learning. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I see it that we are souls, eternal beings, and we're working out these new lessons. And it's like we're doing this workout at a gym. We're working out the muscles, but it's the inner gym. In fact, that's what I used to tell the guys in prison, because they're really used to working out. They know exactly what working out is all about, but they're working out their body muscle. They're not necessarily working their inner muscle. But when we realize it's exactly the same. So the inner muscle, when we're flabby, we're out of shape, we are pretty much, most people know what that feels like. And if you decide you're going to get back in shape, there's like some hell to pay. You got to get through those layers of, oh my God, I can't do this, I want to quit. But then when we get past that and we get our muscles stronger, everything gets easier. And it's the same with this letting go process. And that's pretty much what my purpose is. One of them is to teach how to do this letting go. Because it's cool to talk about it, but then how do you do it? That's the crux right there. And do you want to do it? And are you willing to practice?
Yeah. So the desire and the repetition, right? And practice. Just timely and very interestingly to me, I literally interviewed a gentleman a few hours ago today. His name is Andrew, and he wrote a book called The Unfortunate. And I don't know the rest of the title, and I feel bad about it. But he said the moment that he decided to stop being a homeless man addicted to heroin was when a woman that he describes as an angel only because of how she behaved said to him that you have to forgive the people who that hurt you, but not for them. That forgiveness is for you. And so he said, like, going through recovery, the challenge for him was actually more the letting go. It was the forgiving of all the wrongs before. And so I think I noticed as well in your vast experiences, a part of those were recovery as well. Is that connection correct?
Yes, and I love that you're bringing it up, because this is exactly the nexus point that I'm so interested in. is the forgiveness, this letting go of our sorrow and our fears and our painful memories. Those things are all, they all feed addictions of all different kinds. There are many different kinds of addictions. And yes, I am a recovery coach in addition to a forgiveness counselor. So I like to bring those two things together in exactly the way that you just mentioned that that gentleman did. And it's powerful enough to change our situation, no matter what the situation looks like. Even if you're on the street as a heroin addict, who cares? It works.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what your story is, it still works.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it. And I'm very interested in not only substance addictions, but also behavioral addictions and what I'm calling subtle addictions.
Yeah.
Because subtle addictions are a lot of the ones that, no one's going to go to rehab over, but they still drag us down, and they are repeating patterns of our own mind.
That was literally interesting because that was something that Andrew Mann is the gentleman who I was talking with. He said before he did drugs, he was already an addict. And it was, this is a quote from Daring Greatly, Brene Brown. She said, at one point in her life, she had the poo-poo platter of addictions. Nothing was big enough to go to rehab, right? Nothing was significant enough where anyone would support her, but she knew she had a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit, all of these things. And Andrew said for him, addiction was literally, he was addicted to living a life that wasn't his, to being outside of himself. And so I think it was just very timely and interesting that the two of you were on the same day, and that he said that he accidentally, or maybe it was spiritual, I don't know, but this woman asked him, who do you need to forgive? Who do you have?
Yeah.
And it's not about them. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, well, I would say that we're here together as a family. We're a soul family, and the people around us that we love so much, and also the people around us that we just detest, sometimes those are the same people.
Yeah.
These people are our soul family. They're the ones that are teachers for us. We're teachers for them. We're deep in it together. So the forgiveness, as I see, energetically works, yes, for us, but it also ripples out. That when our energetic changes, it changes the whole fabric of all of creation in its own beautiful way. That's mysterious. That's beyond what our mind can really understand. But I feel it intuitively. And the deepest, most tender part I have found in working with many, many people also is self-forgiveness. So yes, we need to forgive others, but ultimately in every healing situation, there is forgiveness as part of it if it's true healing. And in every situation, forgiving someone else, when you look deeply enough at it, there's forgiveness of ourselves as well. And then
Yeah.
there's forgiveness of ourselves for the things that we did that we're not so proud of, that where the shame and the guilt live in us, like deep down at the bottom of the barrel. That's where forgiveness in this radical way can really save us, save the quality of the rest of our lives.
It's really interesting to me. I'm sure you've run across this being with all of your educational background in this area, but I recently heard some interviews on Ho'oponopono about, so like, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. And what I really found intriguing about kind of this idea of healing was the radical accept, like that you personally take responsibility as well, because ultimately we're all mirrors, and you're actually forgiving you, instead of saying like, I forgive you for harming me. It's like, I forgive myself for letting you harm me, kind of scenario.
Right? And forgiving the moment as it arises.
Yeah.
So that means being in acceptance of what is and stopping the battle. that I have to fix it, change it. Of course, there is a distinction. If someone listening is in an abusive relationship, I am not saying stay, no problem. There are safety issues and emotional safety issues that are very, very important. So I'm not saying have no boundaries. As a human being, we need to respect ourselves and love ourselves enough to say, you know what, this situation is not what I want to create in my life. I'm leaving. I'm going to go do something more creative and different.
Yeah.
And that may mean leaving a toxic relationship in a safe way.
Yeah. I think that was a question I wanted to make sure I get in before we've talked a long time already. I love that the very first thing you said, and I wrote it down because it's huge for me. My background is in software development. I didn't so such a radical change from before to now, but I think I'm on this mission to bring practicality to spirituality, to healing, to love. This is all great conversation, but then there is some doing, right? There is some things that you can practically employ in an effort to move from where you are to where you want to be. So before we have to wrap up and we let people know how they can find you, are there some practical ways toward forgiveness?
Yes, it's a skill that we can learn. And that's kind of surprising to a lot of people because often the forgiveness moments or the healing moments that we have are spontaneous. We might be walking in nature, we might be on a massage table, and all of a sudden something happens and it's really cool and wow, and then we just go on with our lives. But we can learn to make this a conscious decision that we make with skills that we need to learn. And they're not hard. Even a child can do it. You need to have trust, honesty, openness, willingness. Those are the things to start. And everybody can have that. You got to choose to do it. And then the way that I teach it involves some breath and some getting down into what is this thing, so that we're not just, oh, I let it go. But I did, you take a look first, then let it go. Educate ourselves about what is this thing. And then breathing it out and making an offering to the oneness, to our spirit, saying, here's my sadness and my pain. Please take it. I don't want to keep it anymore. That's revolutionary right there. And then the next part of it is to receive. Receive with our breath, receive with our willingness and openness to have something new. The healing will come, but we have to make room for it. That's where learning the skill is. It's not hard, but it's very, very worthwhile to do. And that's what I teach.
I love that analogy. It's actually very helpful for me because you hear a lot of they're like the hashtag moments. That's what I'm like, living in the hashtag moments where people say you can't fill from an empty cup and all of this. But there's some truth to all of those, right? All of the cliches, all the hashtag moments. But I love the way that you worded that. Like there's, the physical body, the spiritual body, there's so much room. And so if you can let go of maybe something that's not serving you any longer, it does create a void where you can accept something that will serve you. So it is like an energetic exchange almost of it's not that it was bad. And I like that you said that before too. It's not that it's evil, conflict is evil. It's just not serving you the way that it's showing up now. And so you can choose to let it go and be willing and open and honest. And it allows room for something great to arrive. So I appreciate so much the analogy that kind of brings back for me kind of some like tangibility to something that's a little bit difficult to be tangible about, I think.
Yeah, because it's not physical. So finding out, well, how do I navigate my emotional and mental and spiritual levels? We're taught to be such physical beings, and yet there's a lot more to us than that.
Yeah. So I think we could probably talk for 50 hours. This is so amazing and very wonderful. How can people find you, Anna, so that if they want to learn more about how you can work with them through, forgiveness, helping with conflicts? Sounds like you have this giant tool belt full of ways to support people. How can they find you?
The best way is just to go to my website, which is anaholub.com. That's ANAHOLUB.com.
Wonderful.
And that will have lots of information, including ways to get a hold of me if you want to do a one-on-one session. I offer a free consultation. So just get a hold of me, email me, and we can set that up. And there's also the links to the courses. And I wrote a book. It's called Forgive and Be Free. And sometimes that's a good place to start.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for your time. Again, I wish we had a lot more time to talk. We'll make sure all of your resource links are in the show notes, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Jackie.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too.